Hello, everyone. Welcome to another installment of Healing Together, the podcast, where we give survivors the stage to tell their stories, and maybe you can learn some tips and tricks along the way. And that's what we're going to do tonight. I have a very, very special lady that I am so happy to have in my life. She's been a very good support to me. And I just want to also say that this is not a substitution for therapy, nor are we going to tell you not to go to therapy. And also, we will be talking about sensitive subjects. So trigger warning for everybody. If you can't handle it, I understand. Please take care of yourself. And when you can handle it, you can join the replay crew. And also to the replay crew, hello. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Elijah, the Degraded Dada.
Hey, how are you, sweetie? This is so fun to be here.
Thank you for being here. I'm so happy to finally have you on. Like, I've always wanted to have you on here. And after your interview with the fab Keela and Gretchen over at Mental Health Matters, I was like, oh, wow, you didn't go to therapy? What?
I know, but I don't like to like tout that because I don't think it's like, ooh, a flex. I promote, like, please go to therapy. I think it's great. I have so many friends and people that I know that have had such, benefits from it. So I always encourage. And I'm sure at some point I will figure out the time and the space to have for that because it just takes time. And then you have to kind of like, find your right person, right? You're right.
Exactly. It's kind of like dating.
Like dating. Yeah, it's like speed dating. That's kind of what I always, have heard. Some therapists might be great for certain people, but maybe not for you. So.
But what is very helpful, even if you haven't been to therapy, is listening to what other people have done that help them along the way. And myself included, I mean, I'm an avid therapy goer, have been since I was 12 years old. I saw one therapist for like a little over a decade. And now I'm going to a new one who's amazing and does EMDR.
How do you like that?
I mean, it's hard and it's tiring, but it's actually working. Like,
it's intense, right? It's more intense.
It can be. It depends on what memory you're going into, stuff like that. We're starting with stuff that is simple, things that maybe I haven't let go of before we tackle the harder ones.
Right, like baby steps.
Yeah, but I'm also all for self-help books, all sorts of different things that you can do to help yourself. And even though I've been going to therapy, I still will listen to others and what they use to help them, and I might try that. It's the same thing with like when I found out I was autistic and I have all these sensory issues and I never really utilized fidgets. And then I went crazy. Like, just give me all of them. Let me try everything. Let me see what works. Because just because one thing doesn't work doesn't mean something else can't work for you. Everybody is different.
And it's not a one size fits all.
Exactly. And let me just grab one of the books that I like to use.
Mm-hmm.
I should have had this prepared.
It's okay. We had technical difficulties with our sound.
I should have had that prepared. But this book helped me a lot. If you can see it. Oh God, is it like blown out? There we go. Sort of. It's called. It's a therapy book in the way of like it kind of just goes through the different techniques and how they work. It has CBT, DBT, ACT, lots of acronyms.
All the acronyms.
Includes stuff about, complex PTSD and how that works through a person. Talks about how to stimulate your vagus nerve to calm yourself down.
Right.
Yes. these other weird like polyvagal theory, EMDR, and somatic psychotherapy. So when I went to go do EMDR, I ended up picking up this book just to read through the different types of things to see what I think I wanted to try first.
Did it help you too to become more comfortable, like before you did it, like just to?
Yeah, and like it does a really good job at like walking you through what a session would be like. And it gives you little tips and tricks to do some of this stuff on your own without a therapist as well. And so yeah, I started EMDR, and so far it's going all right. I definitely utilize like the bilateral tapping. And one of the things that has always helped me is putting my hand just on my chest.
Right here? Yeah.
Yeah. There's just something very calming. Like if I start to feel a little bit nervous or my heart's starting to flutter, I just like hold my chest. Right. And for some reason, for me at least,
it helps regulate, right?
Yes, it helps a little bit regulate. But yeah, let's get started in talking about your story a little bit. Some of my audience might not know you, and I came across you through Liz Ferris and Laura. They're so fabulous. And soon as we started talking, Alicia, I knew that we were going to be friends.
I know. Well, it's so funny. Okay, so I don't know if people probably saw our things just froze. And so I was in the middle of typing in the comments. So I said too soon because like we were joking about making jokes. And then the thing went off screen. So maybe it was too soon. Maybe the stream said no, not tonight.
But, can everybody hear and see us okay? Or so you still see me okay?
I can hear you, but I think you're frozen again.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, my Wi-Fi is unstable tonight, unfortunately. Give me just 1 second.
The Wi-Fi and me, both of us.
Oh, hopefully that's better. I don't know why it keeps doing that.
Yeah, tonight's going to be that night. I'm telling you. That's we said it before that we're like, oh gosh, it's probably going to be like the whole stream is probably just going to, in the middle of something important, just.
Oh, Hockeytown John just said, Alicia, unstable? Never.
Never. I know it's like the world can be up in flames, and I'm just like, okay, this is
whose makeup. Someone said that. I think they're complimenting your makeup. We both have really cool makeup going on. I always love your eye makeup.
Oh, thank you. That's one of my little fun things to do is I like makeup. I'm not very girly, but I do like to do my makeup. So
yeah, I love playing around with makeup.
It's so
different makeup styles. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh no. Is that me or is that Alicia? Uh-oh.
I think we might have lost her. I'm not sure.
What happened? I couldn't remember. I think it was you. Okay, it was you. I wasn't sure.
Oh, I thought it was you. We both went off the screen and it was just black.
Well, that's just, we're going to roll with it.
Listen, guys, that's the show. You don't need any tips or tricks. Be unstable. Have fun. Okay.
All right, let's get into it. Alicia, go.
Go for it. Go for it. Okay, so what do we start now? Are we starting
just start from like your beginning, like how you grew up. You don't have to tell any personal details that you don't want to, obviously. And
right, because that's important. We pick and choose and have consent, and we can have a total authority over our own stories and lives. So I was born into a Scientology family, and I never liked it. I never agreed with it. So I was just a little bit of a, me being a little bit of a black sheep, maybe,
just a rebel.
Yeah, I did. I was a little more, rebellious. And, on one hand, like people would be like, how did you get to do that? Because most Scientologists would be so hardcore and they wouldn't even allow that. So like, it wasn't like, listen, it wasn't the worst thing ever. I don't have like a horrible, horrible upbringing that I'm, so scarred from. But we all have our own things that I think we deal with, we go through, we figure out how to navigate through life's hard times. And so I would say that I've always been curious, and like I'm a Gemini, so I'm flighty. I just want to, have a little bit of information about all these little things. They're not important, but to me, they're important, right? Mm-hmm. So when I became, a young adult, I just wanted to like research all this stuff and like read and listen to all the little stuff here and there, just to kind of make things make sense to me, so that it would at least allow me to understand it, even if I don't agree with it, understand it, right? Because like you don't have to agree with everything or everybody, but understanding is pretty important in general, just, to be a human, to have interactions with anybody, really. So I started probably at a younger age, just trying to like, I had friends of all different walks of life. And so for me, I always like to see how people live and like what they are interested in, whether it's their own religion, their culture, their family dynamics, all that stuff. I always thought that was all like just very interesting. I still am interested. Like I still think that stuff is cool and interesting to me. Mm-hmm. So like I like to hear people's like actual stories, even if it doesn't seem like exciting.
Me. And not just
even if it's not exciting.
Like not just
anything.
Drama, but just like everybody has like a story. Like I want to know how others live.
Yeah.
Like I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me too. Just like what, and also like for me, I felt like there was some elements of Scientology that it took me a long time to understand what it was, because I didn't do a lot of the tech. I was never in the Sea Org. I was never that hardcore. Like I never believed any of it. So like, when I became an adult,
audit it?
I don't remember if I ever did. I don't think so. Because you're supposed to have to want it, right? Like that's part of their thing. Like when you would go for even courses, they'd say, "Do you want to be here?" And I'd always say no. So it'd be like, "Well, why are you here?" Like my parents made me. So then they'd be like, "You can't be on course." So like a lot of the times, the Keeping Scientology Working, which is what they call it, they ask you if you want to be there, and I'd be like, "No," because they'll be like, "Are you well rested? Are you have you had a full meal?" Like making sure you're ready to go. And I'd be like, no. Like sometimes I would do it because I was doing it with, I've done like certain things with like friends. So sometimes I would do it because I didn't want to let them down, right? Because you're doing it and you're twinning together. But like most of it, I was like, this is so weird and stupid. Like, what the fuck? We're sitting here staring at each other in a chair. Oh my God. Like, what? And so most of my life was.
It just sounded like your mom was pretty like open.
She was chill. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
I only will talk about her because she's deceased, and I know that sounds weird, but because no one can harass her. She can't get in any trouble now. Like she's deceased. So I will only speak about her, not about many others, because I don't want anybody to get in trouble or whatever in a world that I don't really believe in. But if they're in it, they can still have all that, all the whatever punishments and out ethics shit, all that. So yeah, I've always just been, I don't know, curious and interested about life and people and how people live. And I like storytellers, right? Like I like people that are just good at that. Like even if it's not, like you said, some really big, oh my gosh, horrible thing. It's like, it's cool to hear about people's backgrounds, because I think when you're growing up, a lot of times you think, whatever this is like, oh my gosh, it's so weird. Or this is your normal, even if it is weird, because that's all you know. So either way, it's like you're normal to you. Even if you're thinking it's weird, it's like, that's all you know. So it's always interesting to me. And so reading and or listening to others became a thing. Now, Scientology was never anything I talked about like ever. I mean, like ever, unless I was in the Scientology world, meaning I was like at an event where my parents made me go to. If we had to do, like, as kids, we did Scientology shit, like walking around the streets and like cleaning up, doing like drug-free campaigns in LA, all kinds of stuff. That's how they would do infiltration, I would say, of like the communities. Is, they'd be like, let's clean up the neighborhood, which of course people live there wanted anyway. So it's like this, like, I don't know, where worlds collide, I suppose. So we did stuff like that. but I was never hugely into it. And then, of course, I did go to a boarding school, a Scientology boarding school. So that was probably my most in-depth, time-spaced experience with Scientology, because I literally lived in a trailer in the middle of nowhere, going to what I considered like a troubled teen indoctrination kind of place, because it was just Scientology. Like most of my life, it was public school. So I could just pretend like Scientology didn't exist. It was just this weird thing that my parents believed in, but I didn't, I don't want anything to do with it. So when I was there, I was really like a smack in the face, like a holy shit, like there's nowhere to go. You can't really get away because you're in the middle of nowhere. So I didn't complete anything when I was there, which is really great because, you're only paying over like $1,000 a month. I think it was in like 1999, 2000 or 2000, 2001, something around there. So you're paying a lot of money because your child or however old they are is essentially living there. So you go to school for 10 days at a time, and then you have 4 days of a break. And then if you live close, like in LA, they would have a bus that come to pick you up, and you would get driven back to LA for the 4 days.
At least you got a break from it.
Yeah. So the thing about that is there was a lot of kids there that their parents either did not live locally. So they were literally shipped off like from other states, or maybe they were like in like maybe Seaworg or something to where they didn't have a place to like go back to. So essentially some of these kids would be there the whole time. And so it became a weird thing where I didn't know I was going to go. So I felt really betrayed by that, right? Like imagine just be like, oh, it's eighth grade. And then nope, getting put in a car, getting driven out in the middle of the desert, and then like, here, have fun. Like the fuck? So for me, the teachers knew that I was a flight risk. meaning I was like, I would run away. So they didn't let me call my parents at all. Like for the first 14 days, they wouldn't allow me to call. They also, I guess they probably told my parents before I went, they did not let me go home in the first 4 days because again, I'd be a flight risk. I would have probably run away when I got home, right? Because I wouldn't have wanted to go back. So they had all these little weird like rules that they had set up for me to try to keep me there, to try to get my ethics in and all that. I mean, it didn't work, guys. I didn't finish any of it. Some of the days I wouldn't even go into the classroom. It was just a trailer and you're playing with clay. To me, I didn't think that was education. I didn't think it was learning. So I just decided that I just didn't really want to do it. So sometimes I would come into the classroom because of the other kids that were there and how behind some of them were. I don't know if that's the right word, but like they had never really been, I don't know, in a normal setting or around people that weren't Scientologists. Like they were much more indoctrinated. And so some of the kids I had a little more concern about than others. And I'm one of 4 kids. I've always babysat. I've always been around kids. Like I'm kind of maternal, I guess. So there was some kids that I would worry about. And so I would stay there for the 4 days because they didn't have an option. Like they had to stay. So on some of the 4 days, like we would stay and I would hang out with them. And you can have sugar on the 4 days. So you can't have sugar when you're there. Like no TV, no radio, no outside influences, no sugar, no video games, nothing like that. But on the 4 days, you could have sugar because you weren't in school. You weren't doing schoolwork. So, and the only way you could get sugar was if you had money and you went to the gas station. There was like 2 or 3 gas stations. And one of them had a half, like those little small mini Taco Bells. So we would get fucked up on some Taco Bell. Right? And then we'd get like some ice cream, like ice cream was my thing. So I'd get like ice cream sandwiches for some of the kids and, stuff like that. Because it was always this balance. Like on the 4 days, like they would have a lot of fun. And some of them didn't know like any kind of like popular music at the time because there's no real music except for in the morning when you're driving from one facility to the other. It's like a 5-minute drive. There was a few teachers that would put on the radio. Now, most of them would put on oldies, which was still fine with me because I like oldies. But, some of the kids had no clue like anything like Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera or like for me, like Sammy was like a little random like rapper kid that was had a cute little one-hit wonder. But so I started bringing CDs, and so we would do like little talent shows, and like I don't know, I felt sad for these kids because they didn't have any.
You've always had such a big heart.
I mean, I got a lot of shit for it because I was the only girl. There's two campuses. The campus that I was at was the first one. I called it the farm. So cute, so sweet, right? Referred to as the farm, and there's no real animals at the one that we were at. The animals are at the other location, so I don't know. They're probably
You were
referring
the
to
animals.
us. Yeah, they're probably referring to us.
God.
Exactly. So I never finished that because you're supposed to complete that, and then you move up to the main house, and it's supposed to be like a layering because it has a little pond and it had horses there, and ooh, like that's what and a chicken coop. So that's supposed to be like what you want to work yourself up to. I just never really accepted that the schooling was important, so I never really did it, and they couldn't really say much to me. I mean, what are they going to do? So we did get in a little bit of, we got in some arguments here and there, and it was just like, well, if you want me to be in trouble for everything, I'll just sit in my fucking trailer all day and I won't do anything. And that's cool with me. Or if you want to shut the fuck up, then I'll go. But then you have to realize that it's all boys there, so I get in trouble for talking because that's bad. Everything's bad. Existing's bad. I got in trouble for having breasts, like everything. It was just everything was an issue. And so I just kind of got to the point where I was just like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Do it again and I'll fight you out back. Because some of the boys would get a little rowdy, right? Now, again, I'm the only girl in my family. So, like, if you want to tussle, that's cool. Like, it doesn't really bother me. I'm also one of the oldest ones at the farm. Most of their kids were like 10, 11, 12, 7, 8, 9. Like, some of them were kind of young. So
you were kind of like their support going through it.
Probably, but I will say there was a lot of like sexual harassment, of course, because they're all kind of going through puberty too. And so they're not told how to act. Like, they're not shown what's appropriate, what's not. And then when you're doing like TRs and bull baiting with them, I got in some trouble because I threatened to beat the shit out of a few of them. But I mean, I meant it out, and my teacher was like, good job to the kids. And I was like, that's not a good job teaching them to try to touch somebody's body is not appropriate. And here I am as a 14-year-old telling a grown man this. But, such is life. So, I made it through that. And then after that, I was just kind of babysitting a kid, like a little infant. So I was just kind of doing the mom thing there too. So there was like a good year and a half that I was just kind of not in school. And so when I got back in school, it was trying to just catch up and pretend like I didn't just disappear for a year and a half. Because what do you say?
Right.
I just disappeared and came back. So I never quite knew how to address that because all the kids were not Scientologists. So I didn't want to admit that I was sent off. So I just kind of was I went to a boarding school and I just kind of kept it at that. But I wanted to figure out what is a better way to kind of get through that, understand that, so when I was older, reading helped, listening to other people helped, hearing what other people, like you said, hearing what other people did was very helpful. I've also had so many friends, we had friends that were in the military and that came back and shared their experiences and how traumatic that was. And we would talk about all the stuff that what didn't really bother me. Some people have it's maybe too much to hear, but stuff like that never bothered me because I was well, I mean, it's just part of life, right? And it's just a different layer. And so, I don't know, it's just learning how to be an adult, in the way that you want to be an adult. How do you want to show up in this world? And these are the attributes and these are the things I would like to bring. This is how I would like to, I don't know. This is how I would like to be and how I would like to be able to communicate. Communication is huge for me. Just as a person, I'm a Gemini. I always talk. So for me, being able to communicate with a lot of people comes kind of easy. It's it's just something that I like. So,
well, what are some of the things that you did to get yourself through those things while you were going through them?
So probably the biggest thing was just knowing, there's obviously a lot of people that don't make it for whatever reason. I don't want to get your story messed up, but there's a lot of people that decide to not be around, right? And so that's always, growing up, it's always hard anyway. Teen years or whatever years are hard. And then you have all this additional shit in there, depending on the person, right? So for me, I was just like Scientology, no biggie. Just the volcano shit, no biggie. So for me, it was whatever. It was just kind of realizing that because I had had in my family before me, someone who did take their life, and seeing what an impact that made, I just didn't feel like I could do that because I knew that would put my siblings in a really bad position.
Right.
Because then it's like, well, then my pain is now their pain. And who's going to be there to be getting in trouble so they can get away with not doing as much Scientology stuff? Like, who's going to be, you know what I mean? Like, who's going to be able to be there and be like, no, we don't want to do this, or, you know, be the little asshole that, you know, says no. And that
Did you have any friends that you did open up to?
No, not about that. Oh God. Oh God. I mean, there was one person that knew because we were close friends and we were going to ride to school together. And like, we're still friends to this day. So like now we talk about it. And it's always like, oh, what? I was so confused. I didn't know, which is normal. Like, you know, if I didn't know, I wouldn't expect somebody else to know. So like I've told them now, and I'll still tell people that like I've known for 20 years and they're still shocked because it's like you live most of your life going public school and growing up with people and doing all the normal stuff, you know, going to the mall, going to the movies, doing your little stupid glamour shots, you know, whatever teenagers do, who's dating who, going to the little school dances, all that kind of stuff. So all that was all very normal for me for the most part. And then I had these little parts of my life where like Scientology just like reared its head a little more. So most of that stuff, it was just for me, I felt almost like embarrassing, right? Because it's like, it's not something that I choose. I don't believe in it. So I don't want to sit there and talk about it because it's not, for me, it's not mine. It's not something that I adhere to or I want. So I never really wanted to talk about that. Now I was when I met like my husband, now we dated when we were in high school, when I met him and when I became serious, I was like, okay, I got to tell you all this shit because I'm not marrying anybody that doesn't know everything, because I also have commitment issues. So I was like, well, let me just tell you all the bad stuff. And if you want to run, you can go, you know, it's good. You can go right now before I like you more. Like, go ahead. So, but it was always just like, okay, that's fine. And here I am thinking like, cause you know, when you feel it, you feel like it's the worst thing or the biggest thing. And somebody else is like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you kind of are like, oh, well, maybe it's not as, you know, because obviously our feelings on the subjects make us feel, you know, differently one way or another. And so, yeah, it was never really a big deal. I would say he's the oldest in-law because we've been together since we were in high school. So he's kind of, in a sense, we've grown up together and kind of gone through a lot of that like Scientology stuff together, like figuring stuff out, because there's so much that is not normal for him or other people that he'll be like, that's not it. Like, that's not what people do. Like, that's a Scientology thing. And I'll be like, is it really? And I'll have to cringe because I'm like, fuck, that too? Shit, you know? Because it's just like another little dig. It's like, well, damn, it's that little thing too. And that little, the way that this happened, the way that happens, like, damn. So, yeah, so sometimes if I'm saying something or doing something, he'll be like, your Scientology is showing. And I'm like, I don't even adhere to that. And I'm always just like,
Scientology is showing.
That's what he'll tell me. And I'm like, I'm not fucking you for a week, bro. Get out of here. Like, this is mean. This is fucking mean. I don't even like that stuff. Like, are you kidding me? So a lot of it is joking. We do laugh and joke. Is like, that's for me is like, humor is top tier. You know, shit. I mean, that's
kind of like how you get through the hard things too. You gotta
right. I think so.
I guess the grin and bear it, like the laugh and bear it, I guess.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, obviously that doesn't mean that you can't feel everything, because obviously you do, but
so why haven't you gone to a therapist?
You know, I don't know. I think it's been a lot of mainly having the time to like dedicate that. I got married at 21, had my first kid at 22, my second kid at 23, moved out of state. Me and my husband, we're just us like raising our kids. So I think most of it is just, I wanted to be, I wanted to make sure I was there for my kids as a mom. Like, so that got put on the back burner, something that's probably pretty normal, you know, a mom saying, well, I'll do that later when the kids get older. And then it's like, you start working when the kids get older and you have all your other responsibilities. So I think honestly, it's probably just timing and just like actually sitting down and doing it. I probably have some aversions to it, even though like I'm so pro therapy. I've read books. You listen to all podcasts with different therapists and people that go to therapy. So I'm very pro, and I have tons of people that have gone. So, and we always recommend it to people too.
Are you
Um,
scared to go, or?
No, I think I think it's just taking the time to find the right
Okay.
person, because I feel like it's like a dating thing, right? Because like if you're gonna find it, like I've gone as far as like looking up the facilities nearby that take the insurance, and none of them were highly rated. like
Mm.
like none of them were great. So I was like, well, fuck. And then of course the pandemic happened, and then stuff was virtual, and I was like, okay, well, let's maybe see. And then that's when I looked up everything, and there was not many things that were really like highly rated, which was like, I don't know if I want to try and have it be a fucking failure, and then
Yeah.
that be a bad taste in my mouth to not do it. So I think it's just mainly trying to find the time. And I also think it's going to be one of those things where it's either going to be I love it or I hate it. And if I love it, I'm probably going to want to be like fully enmeshed in it. And like having that kind of time is hard to find. When you're
Yeah.
working, you got kids and cats and dogs and shit and fosters that are
So,
screaming. So
do you have you? So since you've never been anywhere, that means you haven't had any sort of diagnoses for anything. Do you think you have PTSD?
Oh, I'm sure I've seen PTSD. I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean, we probably yeah. I mean, you've been through some hard things.
Probably.
I feel like it's hard to not at some point develop it, whether you're disassociating at the time or not. Like for me, I was going to some therapy, but I didn't trust any adult, so I had a hard time even opening up.
That makes sense too.
And
yeah, because it has to be a good fit, or you're not going to feel comfortable, right?
Well, I was also 12 when I first started going to therapy, so I've been.
Oh, that's yeah, that could be also a factor.
Yeah, and I have had to dump some therapists. Like there was one dude who was like mocking me, and I was just like, I don't know what's happening. And I was 16, and I don't know. I just felt like he was condescending, and I didn't like.
I wonder if that's because you were a kid and he thought he could get away with it, or if that's just because, like, how do you go through that much schooling and then do that?
Yeah, like
I mean,
I guess I could tell you, like, one of the things that I used to do because I didn't know what to say or how to identify feelings, I would say, I don't know to like everything. Any question asked of me, I don't know. And so when I was sitting there one time and he was asking me questions, he wrote something down and I said, I don't know. And he turned the paper around and it said, I don't know. And he's like, I knew you'd say that. And I don't know, he was just like, it was the way that he approached it that I was like, I don't like this.
See, because I probably would be like, you're a fucking pig, bro. Like, the hell? But see, that's just it. It's like, it's probably frowned upon for the patient to say that.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I've gone through, you know, the little interviewing process and I haven't really ever found someone that I didn't jive with, other than like in my youth, I felt like I didn't jive with more people. But I also feel like I had more of an aversion to
maybe more boundaries.
So I have no
idea. Like more boundaries, more like walls are up because it's like I don't want to be here kind of thing.
Also, I've realized I need to be challenged in like a very specific way.
That makes sense.
And I had
for you to get something out of it.
Yeah. And like I one time, like when I was about 19, after I did an attempt, I wasn't in therapy at the time. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to therapy on my own. And so I went to a low income place. I found someone that I liked. And then what she would do to get me to open up is to take me for a walk. Like it was she was like, let's get out. Let's just, you know, leave this stuffy room and let's get out. And then like if I don't know. It felt more
natural. Yeah. Right. It's just more natural. You're just having a casual chat.
And I think because she was able to think outside of the box a lot of times with me, like it worked. Also, the fact that I was undiagnosed autistic was another complication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you probably need to have a doctor or a person that knows and kind of understands that to some extent. To know how you communicate and what is okay and safe for you. Because again, everyone communicates differently. And so that's always one of my things too, is like, if you're speaking if you're speaking here and I'm speaking here, like we're never intersecting. Like you're never going to understand me and I'm never going to understand you, because you're not like when people are talking over someone or talking at them, you're not talking to understand, you're talking to dominate, or you're talking for ego, or you're talking for whatever, you know? So you're not going to in my opinion, get very far if that's like where they're at. So, and there's such a difference between people that are intelligent, like mentally intelligent and book smart, and like emotionally intelligent. And I find a lot of people have like this very little emotional intelligence. So not very little, but like it's not as common as being book smart. I'll say that. I think it's also not really talked about as much. You know, you have when you hear like parents, what kind of grades are you getting? Right? That's what they're asking their kids. They're concerned about academics, which is great. You should be. But also it's like one of those things where it's also like a flip of a coin. You also want to make sure that they know how to emotionally regulate themselves. They know how to express themselves adequately. They know how to say what they want, what they need, make sure all their needs are met, and do that in a way that they don't feel like they're being a burden to someone, or that they're not being like, you know, pushy, because you have to teach people these things, because not everybody comes out of the womb just feeling
you should become
okay.
a therapist.
Oh my gosh, my daughter was saying she wants to become one, and I was like, that's a lot of school, my babe. Like,
it is.
Do it if you would like, but I just was like, you know, if you're nervous about school, it's a lot of school.
School counseling is suffering.
It is.
Yeah, there's not enough school counselors.
Right. See, that sounds so fun, because I do like kids, and I've worked at schools and in daycares and like with kids and babies.
Yeah, and the certification is less years than, you know, a higher like therapy.
Right, because it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I had a friend in California go through that, and she's loving the like helping kids and stuff. I thought about doing that, but I think what I really want to ultimately do is help advocate for parents for their children who are disabled, like getting their IEPs met.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, they do a lot of work. Yes. They do amazing stuff. And they work with the parents and with the schools and all that. So you're kind of a nice, like, in between, like,
because sometimes parents don't know how to advocate for themselves, or how to even navigate the school system and getting their needs met. So yeah, I find that there's a need for that. Like, I'm hearing from more and more parents that they wish they had something like that.
Right. And with more kids being diagnosed, because that's more common now, we're going to have more kids that need to have someone there to help them with that. And the parents too, because they're not, it's new to them sometimes too. So, and it's always interesting, because I have some friends that have kids that have IEPs, and they always say like, hey, you have to do this, 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 and this. And like, people don't know. And so they'll be posted on like the little school Facebook pages and stuff, because they're like, wait, what am I missing? Like, what am I doing wrong that my kid is just not getting what they need out of school? And it's not always like a teacher that's just not trying. It's just, you have to know what to ask for, and they have to be,
and who to go to.
Exactly. Because once it's in place, it's so helpful for the kids and for the parents, because then you have a team, right? And then the parents feel like there's someone that cares about my child. There's someone that cares about me. There's someone who's advocating for us. Having people having your back is a really good feeling as a human being. I think people want to be seen and heard and understood in general, just no matter what walk of life. So that's, you know, a huge thing, a huge thing. And you're helping, you know, a family, a child, both, like, pave a way for a brighter future, so that they feel, you know, like they can do this, and they can be empowered, and they can get a really good experience out of school. I'm very pro school, just so you know. I'm very like, yes, go.
I'm just pro like education, like research. Never stop learning, people.
You never do, not until you freaking die. And even then, learn how to haunt, because we need some more good.
Yes. I want to be a ghost. So with you having kids and with having like CPSD stuff, how does that affect your parenting? Like, do they know about your story too? Like, how much have you told them?
Not a lot, because I don't want to have my trauma like drown them, if you will. Like, not to be a Debbie Downer, but I don't, my trickle down trauma. That's what I call it, trickle down trauma. Like, I don't want for them to feel like they need to live through me or do something differently because of me. The only thing they know, like, really, is that I'll be like, go to school, even when they're like, I don't want to go to school. Because I stayed home from school when I didn't feel good all the time. But and that was great, but also I really wanted to go to school because like that was like a fun place. So I always tell them like, you guys get the opportunity to go to school. Like in some other places, kids don't even get to go to school. Sometimes they just don't even have that option. So I always want them to understand how like nice their life is in a way and how good it is. So, but of course they don't care. They're fucking kids. You think they care? No, they don't care. They don't give a shit. But I do tell them that. And I was like, I didn't get to go to 8th grade. And I still remember that. And they're like, no biggie. I'll just stay home for a year because we did online school for a little bit after COVID, right? And so going back after that, like it was like a year and a half because like that first year when everyone shut down was a few months, we were home. And then we chose to keep them home for one more year after that. And one wanted to stay home and the other one wanted to go back to school. And so I was like, no, you both, we'll be okay. Let's go back. Because again, like that's going to be a trauma for them when they get older, like living through COVID, like just, it just is. Even
so
though,
what do you do to like foster their mental health?
So we talk about stuff. We try to, talk about the pros and the cons. We chose what made sense for us. Like we wore masks a lot longer than most people did, which was fine. It made us feel safer. Well, I think I'm the only one that ever even caught COVID. Everyone else was good.
Oh,
of course I was the only one. Yeah. It's just me. But yeah, they were all good. No, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, I got it once and I'm actually.
Did you get any long COVID symptoms at all?
No.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So, and I was like, thankfully, right? Because I know some people that have been struggling ever since having it, or they keep getting it like repeatedly and get very sick. So we were really lucky in that. We did take a lot of precautions and tried to be safe and all that. So it was just a time, and I feel like we became closer. Now I'm also a homebody to begin with, so to me,
I can imagine you guys bonded pretty heavily during that because you have nothing else to do, really.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because like they would stay home from school, and for a little bit, so like my job shut down for a little bit, but we opened back up after like 2 months, 3 months. So when we opened back up, I was like, okay, like I'm going back and you guys are going to keep doing this. And it was fine. Like it worked out. And it was kind of one of those things where I wouldn't have wanted to like do that, but because circumstances, we were just like put in the position and I was like, okay, they are old enough to do this. They're old enough to have these responsibilities. So it was kind of a thing that just happened. And it was just, and it's been good. Like they're old enough to understand and to make choices and to do all that. And so it worked out fine. I just know that it's scary for them. Like, of course, to live through that.
Do you ever like talk to them about therapy if they would want to go to therapy for anything?
Yeah, actually, I have asked. I'll talk to them openly about stuff like, and that's probably why my daughter was like, I want to be a therapist because I always talk to my friends about whatever issues they have and I want to be able to fix them. And I said, well, that's really sweet, And I was like, well, do you know how much school it is? And do you know like how much, like what you have to do to become that? Because they also have classes in middle school and high school where they're supposed to look at colleges, look at what they want to do. So they have this whole career path.
In middle school? Oh my God.
Yeah, they did it in middle school. Yeah. Well, that's why I was asking her because I thought you must have did it for that, right?
Dawn, thank you for being here.
Because they do it. They have a whole class of it and it was wild. But wow. I was like, yeah, they're talking about college in middle school.
We literally didn't talk about college until like junior year. Obviously, as soon as you enter high school, they do talk about it, but they really lay it on you like the beginning of your junior year. Like maybe the end of my sophomore year, they were like, have you started looking at colleges?
Right.
And because I was so
they're getting much more prepared.
And because I was just so depressed that I mean, this is really like sounds sad, but I honestly didn't know how long I was going to live.
Right. Because you're not preparing for that. You're like, well,
I was in so much trauma, and disassociating all the time that I couldn't even like think straight.
Yeah. Because you're just surviving. You're just barely surviving and then tired all the time because your body's on overload, your mind's on overload. Yeah. Everything is on overload. And it's a lot. I
did end up in a mental hospital for a short amount of time in high school. And that was a little embarrassing because I didn't know what the kids were going to say.
Right.
And even though like I had been bullied my whole life, I honestly don't think anybody really bullied me for that. I think a few people who were mean were like, called me crazy. Oh yeah, there's crazy. but I had been bullied by certain people my whole life that I lived in the same neighborhood with.
Yeah. See, that's hard. You can't escape them. They're just there the whole time.
No. And so after that, I just went into more deep depression my senior year, almost didn't graduate. And then I took a whole year off because I was like, I can't,
right?
I can't do anything.
You just need to calm down. You just need to be able to chill and just, you knew that you need to take a step back.
And even when I went back to school, I went to college, I picked a college that wasn't even local because I did not want to see anybody I went to high school with.
See? Okay, so that's something that's so funny. Like I talked to people so I went to 2 high schools because I moved in the middle of high school from California to Florida. And so I have friends from both high schools, right? And so when I went to California and I visited someone that, I've known since like elementary school. And I was like, oh my gosh, look at this picture of like, this is us in like middle school, like how fucking crazy. And I'm like, and she's like, do you want to send this to, there's like other people in there. I'm like, well, only if you want to, but I don't know them well enough to know if seeing a picture from that time frame is going to trigger them. Cause like not everyone's childhood is fucking good. And even if you think it is, we all know that we would all cover that shit up as much as we could because you're just a kid and you don't understand how to express that. And probably kids, listen, we grew up in the 80s and the 90s. Kids were fucking ruthless, okay? Or ruthless. Like that
teenagers in general are like jerks to each other.
Yes, but especially back then it was even worse. I don't know, maybe not worse. I don't know. It was definitely more acceptable to be a bit more, rowdy.
Oh yeah.
and say some really mean stuff. Because some of the stuff I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we were saying this. Like some of it I'm like, yeah, I can believe it. Even though it's not good, I can believe it.
Art is really the only thing that got me through things. Like, and when I was in the hospital, one of the things that I really enjoyed was art therapy. And so I use art therapy techniques even with the preschoolers that I teach because I find a lot of those skills and those like to tap into your emotions through your art. Like it's not like I'm therapizing these kids, but you can
you're letting them express themselves.
Yeah. And I want to make sure that they know like how to express themselves like through art, and I'll ask them questions even, or like have a prompt. Like it doesn't have to be anything like serious, but I just like to also make sure that they're just using their brains and like, that they can do DIY things. Like I try all the time to do like as many different DIY projects as possible. I'm frozen again.
You are. But we can hear you. So you're good. You're good. Keep going. Yeah.
Well, I'll finish my thought. I'll pop out, pop back in. Oh, gosh. Okay. So yeah, I utilize some of like the techniques that I've learned through my own therapy to even teach. Cause I feel like I can teach more effectively when I'm tapping in to their emotions so that they're, becoming more aware of how they feel. I mean, that's what we have to teach them, right? Like if they're having a meltdown or a freak out, something caused that. And so you have to get to the root of that and get them to identify these feelings. So I really like, don't just talk to them about feelings and say, what is like the person in this picture's face say? Like, what does angry mean? Like, I make sure that like, I don't know. I feel like I'm going on about it.
No, but you're giving them the tools that they need, right, to be able to express themselves and to share. And also, you're kind of starting the foundation or adding on it, depending on what their parents are doing at home, of them having some really good, healthy like learning habits and how to be okay with themselves and in their own bodies and in their own skin. Like that's important for kids to know that whoever they are is fine. Right. However, whatever is comfortable for you is fine. It's fine.
Let me pop out real fast.
Okay.
Take the stage. BRB.
This is literally going to be the whole night. It's just going to be frozen, but you can hear us. So that's good. Because before we started, you couldn't hear us. We couldn't hear each other. And we had to figure out our technical difficulties.
I'm back.
So yeah, you're building their emotional like health. You're teaching them how to do this. And it's important for kids to learn. It's important for anybody to learn, but especially kids, because think about this. If you had those tools when you were younger, how much better, easier, more manageable would have anything that you went through have been, because that's what I think of.
Right.
even
And
going through this stuff would have been more manageable.
exactly. And being also being autistic. I mean, the thing is, I feel like when you're neurodivergent, you're going to end up with some sort of trauma because the world is not really set up for neurodivergence. And when you go through life undiagnosed, like you already
it's a
feel
confusion,
like, yeah, it's
You're
a
just already
super
like
confusion. I literally felt like everybody else had this handbook that I just am missing. Nobody gave me the handbook, and I am just flying by the seat of my pants. And autism aside, having trauma and having abusive family members and stuff like that, and growing up with an addict, everybody was emotionally immature. So nobody could even help me when they couldn't help themselves.
Exactly, because they don't even understand how to regulate themselves. How are they going to tell you, show you, help you and guide you with that?
Right.
And that's always the case, is like you always want healthier parents in general, because then you have healthier kids and you have a healthier society just in general.
That's why, it is important, I think, I mean, you're not going through therapy right now, but at least you're doing probably some things to really help you along the way.
Yeah.
Like what are some of the things that do help you?
So taking time out when I need to. Like right now, I'm not in any active place, but I think like at my most raw, I would say, we were in like 2020. I want to say. So like the world was a shit show. My mom was terminally ill, and I was kind of coming to terms with like, she's gonna keep her Scientology beliefs, and this is probably not gonna end well. And how am I gonna deal with that? How am I gonna tell my kids that? Because it's very hard to be like, oh yeah, by the way, someone that you know and love is terminally ill and probably won't recover. Like, and then you're already going through COVID, and then you're going through the politics. And it's been a weird time. It's kind of weird again. We're ramping up another weird time, but it was just, everything was just like, I don't know. I just had a time to myself out. I just took a step back. I stopped doing some of the things that I actually really love doing, but it just became too much for me to try to be in too many spaces at once. So I just try to come back home, meaning like, I don't have I'm not doing extra hobbies because I just need to make sure I'm okay. And by me being okay, that's me doing the best thing I can for my kids, so they can see, sometimes we just need to take a step back. Sometimes we need to just, let go of the things that we cannot control. Because again, we're not in control of anything or anybody else besides our goddamn self. Like, that's it. That is the only thing that we have any kind of control over, is just us. And it can be hard to accept that, right? Because like, you can have the best intentions and want to help your friend or help a family or help whoever, but at the end of the day, it's free will. Free will is the mother. It's a hard thing to come. It's the hard thing to come to terms with, is you wanting something different, and because everyone thinks that they're right. I'm right because this is what I think is going to be the best, of course. But we have to learn how to navigate the world without encroaching our thoughts, beliefs, and opinions onto others in a way that's harmful to them. Because while I might think I know what's best, I'm not going to tell somebody else that unless they're asking me for active advice. And even then, I'm like, you can say to fuck off if you don't like it. Like, it's totally fine. Like, we have to have enough emotional maturity to know that what works for you works for you, what works for me. And sometimes those will be the same things, and sometimes they won't, and that's okay. That's a-okay. Like, you got to make sure that you're doing what's best for you. Because listen, at the end of the day, we have to, make sure we're good in the best way that we can. And so that's always just been something that I, took a step back. But when it was really active, that was when I kind of started to even look at Scientology and like how fucked it all is. Because like, you can know that like, the floor is hot, but when you look down, you're like, oh, it's lava spilling from blah. Then you have a place and where it started, where it originated, like where to look to get answers if you need them, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So like, to me, it was just letting go of what I wanted after everything happened, and just allowing myself to feel all the feelings, but just kind of be isolated, because I got a lot of feelings. Okay, I'm a Gemini, so like, we got a lot of feelings normally. All right. Yeah. We got a few different personalities normally. And so I just was like, this is too much. So I took time for myself. I became probably a little bit more depressed, I would say. A little mentee bee, like sitting in bed. I love DoorDash. Like that came out at the best time. Like, you know, just saying. It was not great, but like it's great. Like financially it's not great. But like during the pandemic and when you're having like an active, like I don't want to see the world, like it was perfect. So I just kind of went into a bit of a like sad state in that I just kind of just, wasn't happy for everybody else. Because again, everybody has different roles in their family, in their jobs, in their careers, in their lives. And I know that people understand me as being one way because that's usually what I present as, a little bit more friendly, bubbly, all that, because that's what makes people feel comfortable, right? But you mask that because you don't want people to feel uncomfortable with your sadness, with your feelings, with your whatever it is you're going through. And so it's always, to me, even interesting to just kind of look back and be like, how many people were like, whoa, you're really not okay. And some people were like, you're going to be okay, even if you're not right now, right? Like, because that's really the truth of it, is like, you can be going through the worst time ever. And most of us will, because we're all going to have, like you said, we're all going to have some type of trauma that affects us one way or another. It could be something, it doesn't even need to be that you're, born into a cult or anything. Like your animal could pass away. That's traumatic. It is. You have a breakup. That's traumatic. Like stuff like that is just hard and sad. And you got to, allow yourself to feel those feelings in a space that's safe for you, in the time that makes sense for you. Because like, again, I'm not a person that likes to be emotional in front of people. Like I still don't. That's a me thing. I still don't really, unless I'm really, really, really comfortable with that person. And even then, I would prefer to be by myself so that I don't feel like someone's going to have sympathy for me and I feel weird, because I don't want that. I don't want someone to feel bad for me because XYZ, because that's just never been like my thing. And it makes me feel uncomfortable.
And so, I guess for me, I just never felt like I had a safe space until, in the last like 10, 15 years, like, and I'm going to be 43 next month. So I feel like I didn't really start getting a grasp on healing, living my life and enjoying it until my late 30s.
That sounds right. I'm 38. So.
And so even though I was, in and out of like therapies, I still just had a really hard time at diving into the deepest parts of my trauma.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's not pretty. Like feeling is messy. Being a human is messy, first of all.
But yes, life is messy.
Yeah, we have so many feelings. We're complex creatures. We are quite complex.
And one day I'll probably talk about it publicly. But it's not even, I don't play sad Olympics or trauma Olympics or like this memory is more sadder than this memory or this was worse than this. It's all varying levels of bad.
Right. It's different shades of this fucking sucks.
Yeah. Like, I could say that SA was like the worst in my life, and maybe it is due to an extent, but then I also feel like some other things that happen to me are like probably the most saddest things that you could ever hear. And I'm just now coming to terms with some of it, and even getting validation from my own grandmother about some of this stuff. Because, especially when you're a kid, like you can't really remember a lot of stuff. Maybe you're disassociating. Like I disassociated hard, but I didn't even know what disassociating was.
Yeah. You thought it was a superpower, right? It was like, oh, I don't remember. That's probably good.
I was just always called a daydreamer, or I was like,
your head is in the clouds.
Their own little world. And like, it was disassociating. And
little did they know.
And so I'll probably talk about it eventually, but like, like going from like 10 years with one person thinking that maybe I've uncovered like everything.
Right. Well, because it probably felt like that. Maybe you plateaued with them, right? Like you did all that you could do with them. And that's okay too. 10 years is a long time with a therapist.
Yeah. And
It's
it was
really
a
amazing.
special relationship. We cried on our very last day.
I bet. I mean, 10 years, it's like they know you, but also like it's nice to have someone that you can open up to and express yourself without being judged.
Yeah. I mean, mostly there was two things that happened. She had to step away from practicing because she got a TBI, unfortunately, and just couldn't mentally be there for all her clients. And then at the same time, I was looking for EMDR or cognitive behavioral therapy, and she didn't do those.
Right.
So
it's just the right way to part.
Yeah. And like, I always tell people, don't be afraid to even like, not fire your therapist, but like move on to a different one. Because honestly, I've heard from every therapist that they don't care if like you need something that they cannot provide.
Right. I think a good therapist would want for you to go to get what you need if that's what they're there for.
And I've heard from my therapist, my current one, too, is that some people will stay with therapists because they're afraid to fire them or break up with them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I always tell people, make sure that if you feel this, like you feel like you don't, like you're afraid to leave somebody.
Right.
It's not that they're not serving you, but maybe they just don't have the right, like all the tools that you need.
Right. And some personalities just don't also mesh. Yeah, and that's okay. That's okay. Like some people are very specific about what is in there for them is safe for them, right? Like some people would only see a therapist as the female. Some people would only want to see a male therapist. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's not okay. So I don't know. I've heard that.
We all have our comfort levels. Yeah. And I also, you know, I have like this tendency to even like be afraid to be judged by my therapist. But I had to like really get over that. Like in order to, I feel like really heal effectively, you got to surrender yourself kind of.
Yeah. You got to be like, I don't care how this looks. I don't care what people think. I just got to get through this and uncover this and tackle this in whatever way is healthy for you. And I say whatever way is healthy because obviously it's like most people have careers, lives, families, jobs, you know, all this other stuff that they're balancing and trying to keep, you know, keep going, keep working. So you got to find the place and the people that get you, that makes sense. I mean, if it's not, like you said, if it's not serving you, what are you doing there?
Yeah. Sophia, you're right. The brain has a tendency to protect us from what we're not ready for yet. It still means that final piece of the puzzle. Yeah. And like, I was talking about this kind of thing, like resilience. I was talking about resilience with somebody recently and how like I've always been weirded out by people telling me, oh, you're so strong for getting through the things that you did.
Like, what were my options, my friend?
Yeah. And I guess in a way that is resilience because you have to learn quickly that you have to like help yourself. Like I had to help myself completely emotionally. I was very lost.
Right.
And oh, where was I going with that thought? What did I say? Oh, geez. No.
Resilience.
Yeah, resilience. And so I was thinking about like, you know, people who are in like war areas.
Right.
It's like you have to have some sort of resilience to be able to survive to the next day. It's like you have to make sure that you keep going, especially if you have like children or you have to take care of your like community. And then after everything is over, that's when you can finally do something about it.
Right.
And so I think our brains go into some sort of like the fight or flight is part of the resilience because we still have
it gets you through and then you can decompress and pick apart the stuff once you're through. And that's kind of how I am too. Like I don't want to, certain things like are super big milestones and not necessarily in a good way, but I just knew like if I just get through them, then I can like go home and in my safe space and like kind of break down on everything. Like that's literally what I said about when my mom passed away because she did death with dignity. So we knew when she was dying and all that, and we were all there. Mm-hmm. And so that was important for me because she was like, no, I don't want anyone in there. And I was like, fuck you, we're all coming. So well, I don't really care. I mean, you already don't like me though. We're all going to be there. Like, but it was just this weird Scientology thing. Like no one needs to know Like, you're fucking dying. Yeah, people do need to know. Like, it's fucking, like, it's a whole thing. So when we were there, it was one of our family members was asking, like, the day, I think it was the day or the day after it happened. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I'm not, but I will be, because I got to get myself home, because I'm out of state, right? And I'm traveling by myself." I was like, "When I get home, then I can break down and like let everything out." And she's like, "Okay, I get it." And it was such a thing, because like somebody else heard that and they're like, "What do you mean? Isn't this where you're supposed to do it? Like with all of us together?" And I was like, "No. I mean, yes, maybe, but for me, no, because that's not what's like been safe and comfortable for me, you know." Because showing emotions is not a huge thing in Scientology. And so for me, I just am like, I don't want to have the association with that. I want to be able to do it in what makes sense to me. So yeah, like you just said, you have to sometimes get through things that are really fucking hard, that just are not fun. They suck. They're difficult. And you know,
and learning how to ask for that help. Like, I still go through these periods of time where my depression brain is like, "Oh my God, you're so depressed, but you can't bother anybody because nobody cares, or you're going to bother them and like interrupt what they're doing." Like,
yeah, I
just had to like kind of get over that and make sure that I have people that I know that I can go to.
For sure.
We have like, you know, more open dialogue, me and my closest friends, more now than ever. And I always make sure to tell them, like, you know, "I just want to let you know that I am getting triggered by XYZ. So I might like be away for a little bit, but I don't want you to worry." Like, I make sure now to let people know too when I need to pull back, because I've been told before, like, I just disappear on people. And, you know, I don't mean to.
But no, like, I'm not saying it to you. I'm saying, yeah, because that's like what feels safe, right? To retreat. Go, like, you're the turtle going back in the shell. Like, that's what's safe. And yeah, I mean, for sure, there's sometimes that we owe it to people that we're close with that would be concerned, and we just want to make sure that they're not worrying more than they need to about like you being in charge of like, "Hey, this is what I need to do for myself right now." And taking a step back is what's needed. I mean, listen, sometimes it's, I go back and forth with it. Like, I'm either an over communicator and I'm like saying way too much. I'm like, I don't need to say all that. Or I just let it be and people can make up whatever scenario they want. And let me know the story. Like, let me know what kind of bullshit you made up, because I just need to know. Because it's funny for me sometimes. Like the things that people will make up, you know? Because like, even going on YouTube, I was just like, this is beginning to be a little bit strange for me, and I don't want to do it. I'm not participating in some of the bullshit. Like, not anyone specifically, just the song and dance of it all. That like,
the internet in general can be exhausting.
I was just gonna say the internet in general, and like I guess I saw it more with like people like on TV. Like if you watch reality TV shows, and there's like specific groups that just break down every episode or whatever, and each person is and you look at it and you're like, "Oh, okay." But then when you're on the opposite side, you're like, "Hey, these are human beings who like, you're totally misrepresenting what happened, or you're misreading it." But it's like a crumb of truth and then an avalanche of bullshit and conspiracies and thoughts and theories that they just are shooting out there, and you're just like, "Whoa, how in the hell?"
Oh, sometimes I go on Reddit and like our specific community, and I'm like, "Man, where did you reach far to get that one?"
Yeah, that's one of those things where it makes me really be like, "What in the what?" And I like, and here's the thing. I think people mean well, and I think they're just trying to, like, again, understand it and pick everything apart, because there's like always some deeper meaning, and like they think there is. And some stuff is like, yeah, there could be deeper meanings, but it also, like, not every bit of every person's part is for your entertainment, is for your knowledge. You know, people have full body autonomy, and they don't need to say everything that, you know, that happens or that has happened.
Yeah,
or,
there's like a weird, unnecessary like pressure put on creators or famous people that they're in, like, people, the general public are entitled to their information because they chose to do XYZ. It's like, hey, I know that I put a lot of my personal self out there, but
you've chosen like what you want out there
that people do not know. Things that like
Right.
I was even worried to even tell my full story to begin with because my grandmother is still alive.
Right. And that's scary because it's like it's double-edged sword for you, because it's like you don't want to ruin the chances of, you know, whatever time you guys have together, and if there's a relationship
I
or
don't know
not,
if
or if there could
my
be,
family
you
is
know.
going to find any of my videos. I doubt they even care enough to even look at my stuff. I mean, I don't think they ever did really, but that's
Yeah.
another
But
video
you
for
never
another
know.
day.
Right. But you never know. And in your head, you're probably thinking, what's the worst case scenario, right? Like, and that's one of the reasons I try not to talk about, I try not to, you know, talk about other people, because listen, there's tons of stories that most of us could tell, and some of it I don't think needs to be on the internet, only because I value people's privacy more than I value a video, a click of you. I mean, and it's not definitely it's definitely not going to get you clicks and views, guys. But so don't take my advice on that. But at the end of the day, what's important to me is being a good human being and not shitting on someone just because, I don't know, it seems fun or cool at the time. And it's
Yeah.
hard to do that because when people are watching people talk about trauma, it can be re-triggering and it can trigger other people. So it's just
Exactly.
it's a cycle that you have to know, like, I'm going to do something that could be traumatic and that could be re-triggering to me. And maybe I'll have to take a step back up, you know, afterwards. And maybe that'll be the only time I do it, or maybe I'll just learn to do it and how to balance it. And everyone's going to be different on that. You know, like I get why some people don't say anything at all personal. Like if you're like actors and stuff that have like nothing, like no personal lives out there, I get it. It makes sense. You're doing your job and then you have your personal life, and that's separate. And so, especially when you have the added, all the conspiratorial like stalkers.
It feels so gross to watch people dissect other people's trauma. Like, it's just weird and unhinged behavior, and I've never understood how people.
I think it's just they're fascinated. I try to look on the bright. Some of it is just to stir up shit, I'm sure. Like there's just a certain amount of trolls and weird internet shit and just whatever. But I think there's a lot of people, even if I don't agree with what they're saying or doing, I at least would like to think that at least they're just trying to like understand something, or they think that they understand it, and therefore their version of whatever it is the right one. And it's always just like, I just don't feel like correcting any of it at all. Like you can believe that. That's what I thought in middle school too. When I like randomly left for a year, I was like, oh gosh, everyone's gonna think I probably just like randomly got pregnant and got sent away, because like why else would you be gone? Because I was also babysitting right after. So there's more to that. I wasn't out doing anything, but I was gone for like a full year. And then I had a party, like, I don't know if it was a birthday party. I think it was a birthday party. And I told you I came back and I started like babysitting an actual infant. And I was babysitting him at my house before the party. And a few people came early. And I'm sitting here with this little kid that looks just like he could pass for mine. And he always did. You're like, right? Because he blonde hair, blue eyes. And I had blonde hair when I was a kid, or brownish. And so it's like they just walked up and like saw me with this baby on my hip. And I was holding a baby like I'd always been around kids, so it didn't look unnatural, you know? So I'm sure people thought that. And when that came up, people were like, well, I'd be like, think whatever the fuck you want. Like, I'm not setting the story straight. Like, because if you were an actual person that cared, then you would ask as an actual person who cared, not just, you know? And so no one ever really said that. But in my mind, that's what I thought that people would have thought. Because like, it's just embarrassing for me. And I'm coming back in not knowing how people are going to react or what's going to be said. So, you know, the worst case scenario is always a fun game to play.
Have you ever looked into not just therapy, but have you looked into even just self-help books on certain like techniques like EMDR or CBT or anything?
Not EMDR. Like I've read a little bit, and I've read some people that really like it. And then I've read books, just self-help books, like just like from therapists and stuff from just people that have been through stuff. And then I went through a whole thing of reading like ex-Scientology stuff, just because like I pushed it away so far. Hey, Gretchen. And so I wanted to actually finally like take that back in a way that makes sense to me. Like, I don't like it, but I'm going to actually learn about it. And so it's been very interesting in the community to see all the different perspectives. And like I always say, I think everyone's perspective is important. It doesn't matter if you're a Sea Org or public or staff or not staff. It doesn't matter. Like, I still think there's certain elements that are similar, like whether it's a cult, a high control group, a shitty job, a toxic environment, a really not good relationship, they all have very similar patterns. And so if you know what to look for, or what are like, red flags, then it makes it a lot less likely that you'll be sucked into one. Hopefully, I say that because no one's immune to anything,
and nobody ever really
smart people
taught me about red flags growing up. So I got myself into some pretty abusive situations, but also I was so used to chaos
that I would say that's your normal, right? Because that's what your normal seems like.
Exactly. It was easy for me to get sucked into people like that, I think.
Right. Well, that's normal,
abusers,
because that's what your brain is going for. It's going for what you're used to.
Yeah. And also abusers can usually seek out who they know is vulnerable enough that they can manipulate.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, people with disabilities, learning difficulties, autism,
they can be some of
the most vulnerable. Yeah, because like I definitely, even though I didn't trust people, there was like times that I trusted too easily.
Right.
But also like one of my first big relationships was extremely controlling. And he basically, I didn't realize how far removed from my friends and my family he was getting.
You're isolated. Yeah, you're just being more and more and more isolated. See, and that's the thing that I think is fascinating about high control groups, cults, and abusive relationships. It's the same tactic. Get the person away from whoever would stand up for them.
They don't understand you the way that I do.
Right. And whatever that, or they don't really.
I will be the one to take care of you.
Yeah, and they're not really nice to you. Do you notice how they're talking about me? And so I will say I am definitely a person that when I see those red flags, I am like, still up, whatever. And it's not like it happens like all the time, but how, like, listen, as someone mid-30s, I've known plenty of people that have had bad relationships, girls and guys. Like I've known both that have been in bad relationships that were not healthy. I've known people that are not healthy workspaces, not healthy, upbringings, like all kinds of stuff. So it's not as uncommon as sometimes we think it is, right? Because we kind of personalize our trauma as it happened to us. And so sometimes we don't realize that so many other people have had similar traumas and had similar, circumstances that they've had to get through or that they're trying to currently get through now. And so that's why I feel like in this community in general, it's important for anybody that wants to, that feels like they want to share, to do so and to be supported. So if you guys ever see me in chats just being supportive and you're like, what the fuck? I just I don't do videos often anymore, but I do still want to be supportive of people because I think it's important for people to have support.
Exactly.
And
you have become friends. You have friends in the community. Like we all, whether we have channels or not, we're all like wanting support and wanting to support others. And Gretchen says, since getting my chronic conditions, I struggle with self-esteem and being enough for my partner. And I really understand that because like when you start to like lose also parts of like your body function, it can be really jarring and hard to probably talk about. It definitely like I had like a weird condition pop up that I'm now in remission for that apparently is extremely common for people with vaginas, but not many people talk about it. It's called vulvodynia. It like is a psychological problem that they don't really know where it comes from, but it like makes it extremely painful to have sex.
I've heard that. I just have never heard the term. I've heard people say that. And I've heard it fluctuates depending on the time of the month and after a kid and pregnancies and stuff. So like
trauma.
Or trauma. And can't bring it down trauma. Trust you, true trauma.
And right around the time that my condition started, and this was like I've been in remission for years now. I had just started the therapy with that girl that I was with for like a little over a decade. And I had just opened up about something I'd never opened up about before. And it was involving sexual assault. And then that just started happening to me right after.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Do you think it was connected?
I think so. I mean,
yeah.
When you look into it and like it says that it's largely a psychological issue, especially around trauma,
Yeah.
And sexual assault specifically. And again, like after giving
Right.
birth or sometimes like just a big hormone depletion, I guess this can happen. And yeah, there's no real good reason or how, like, there's no cure. There's no way to really tell when it's going to be over with.
I was just saying it probably just pops up like.
But I think getting into the healing and really opening up and then eventually, like, I don't know, feeling a little bit more confident, it just started like lessening. I still have some issues, but you know, it is what it is. And I don't talk about it that often, but I'm not afraid to talk about it because again, I heard that it was something common and most people don't know about it.
I've heard that. I've just never heard what it's called. So that's the first time I've heard the name.
And so
I've heard tons of girls say that.
Yeah, and I've heard like tons of people say that they have these issues.
Right. And there's like also like
and it took me like
for different reasons. And there's all kinds of
It's a whole. The body manifests trauma in so many different ways, and it took me like 3 different gynecologists to figure out what had happened.
Oh wow!
So if it's something common, why don't more gynecologists know about it?
I'm sure a lot of people probably are embarrassed to talk about it.
Yeah.
I will say now I feel like people are a little more open, which I think is a good thing. Hopefully, you know, because like the more open you are, the better you can, like the more likely you are to get the care you need, right? Because if you're saying this and this and this, and then maybe they can help quicker. Or more efficiently, and just instead of you trying multiple things or multiple
doctors. And I would say don't be afraid to do your own research in some things, because I mean obviously don't go overboard, because like if I go on at WebMD it just tells me I'm dying.
You're dying. You're dead. You've been dead. WebMD says you're dead.
But there is something to be said about going, hey, what are my symptoms? Okay, type those in just generally across the internet, and then maybe seeing what like pops up. And after I got my diagnosis, I started seeing a few more like women creators who talk about like sexual health, talk about these things finally. I'm just still seeing a lack of education on it, I guess. But I mean, information takes a really long time to get circulating. I mean, when I went on Gretchen's podcast, we talked a lot about trauma-informed care and how like it's still being newly developed and figured out. And I think it's going in a good direction, but again, it's just, you know, slow, just like everything else.
I was gonna say it takes its time. Yeah, it's slow, but I agree with you. I think we're getting, in general, society is getting better at acknowledging that these things happen, and not just like you said, not just like dismissing people or their pain or whatever they're going through. I think I would hope that we're making strides in good, healthy ways to where we can, like you said, have better ways to help people that are in any kind of crisis that need specific care, specific help. And not everyone is suited to do that, right? Not everyone knows how to speak a language that is not aggressive and scary or put someone in a worse space than they're already in. And that takes a lot of time and training and understanding. And, and you have to care to want it, you know.
And to speak back to like Gretchen's point about like just self-esteem, I think having confidence in general can really help you be able to set boundaries where you need to and be able to recognize when something is off.
Yep. Because if you don't know when something's off, you're going to stay in it until.
Yeah. Like I hardly ever followed my gut, even when something seemed wrong. I don't know. It was like I was a deer in headlights for so long. I just kind of let things happen.
Well, yeah. And see, sometimes that's when you're you're freezing and fawning, right? Like you don't know what to do. And that's one of the things I hate sometimes when I feel like I can't do anything. I'm just like sitting there like deer in headlights, like what should I do? What can I do? We're not feeling like you have any power, like just feeling frozen. Like I hate that because it's not a fun feeling. to feel powerless. It sucks. And
Yes.
it's something that specific people, like you've said, go out of their way to find people that they feel like would be nice enough or easy enough for them to like push around. And they do little tests, right? And so I will say that's one of the few things that I feel like has been in a weird way helpful is I've found out who I was at a core and what I will and will not accept. And it's easier with certain people for me to put my foot down than with others. I find that with strangers, I think it's sometimes a little bit harder because I don't know, right? So I always want to like give a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. But if it's someone that I know is just not healthy for me, then that's that. Like I just will, not want to be around that because who wants to be sitting in funky ass energy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
not me.
If there's a space for it to get figured out or fixed or whatever, if it's like a close relationship or whatever, that's one thing. But just to be uncomfortable or to be polite, I don't like, I feel like I hope that we can get away with that, like get away from that as a society, like not just being like prim and proper and that's what you're supposed to do. Because, unfortunately, that's kind of bit a lot of people in the ass and harmed them by, like by just being nice or cordial or letting so many things slide until you can't, And so, there's definitely, but again, if we had more emotional maturity at a younger age, maybe we would have been able to.
Or valued. Here's two things really quick. Valued emotional mental health, because I still feel like we don't value mental health quite the way we should still, but it's getting better. And then also, did the train just leave the station?
No, it's just stopped.
Oh my God. This is what happens when we do it later.
Was it emotional? This is what happened.
Yes, it was about emotional maturity.
If we had the tools when we were younger, but it might not have been different because sometimes trauma is trauma. We're not trying to redo the past, but I just would like since so like with every generation, I know what it was. Every generation learns tools to pass on.
Yes, I know what it was. Also valuing, or not just valuing mental health, but taking emotional abuse more seriously. A lot of people will be like, well, they didn't hit me or they weren't physical. And I've even done that to my own self. I'll hear victims be like, well, they didn't harm me physically. Yeah, but mental trauma really can hurt the brain.
Sometimes that's harder to get out of because you build your own mental prison in there. I mean, listen, like that's what sometimes a lot of these cults are too, is like these mental prisons and mental just bad mindsets that, are either put on us or that,
Yeah. Medical trauma, I feel like is still not a widely accepted thing. Like I don't know, like even when I've like talked to my grandmother about the trauma that I've faced with medical professionals, she doesn't really take it seriously. She never did. And it led me to not reporting things when maybe I should have, like, uncouth bedside manner. And so I feel like when certain traumas are taken seriously, then people start to have more confidence to stand up when that kind of trauma happens too, I think. Right?
At least I think so. Like we hope so. I mean, that's not going to be the one. We're not saying this is going to be the case for every single person every single time, but we would hope that as we get more tools in the toolbox, that you have more options of what to do instead of just thinking, I have to sit here and take whatever it is.
And the more adults, more parents that own their own trauma and don't inflict that onto their kids, then you're starting to, help that generational curse maybe from stopping. Because I know that it's going to stop with me. Because I was like the only one in our family to be like, okay, come on, guys, what's happening here?
But did you get looked at like you were the weirdo?
Yes, I was the black sheep of the family.
Well, there you go.
For sure.
It's like, this is like the analogy I use. I'm like, okay, if there's like 10 people in a house and it's raining and it's leaking, and you say, hey, do you guys see that the roof is leaking? Everyone else is like, why are you talking about the roof leaking? Why can't you just be excited that you have a house? You have a house. It's
I get
like
that.
that's what I make it akin to, because I'm just like, it's not, yeah. But there's definitely different layers of it for each individual person and their background, and
Exactly.
how that all manifests, and how people are, how they are, and who they are. Because it's like part of it's how you grew up, where you grew up, how you're raised. It's such a combination of things, right? And then just your personality and your will and all that, because that all comes into play. So I don't think that there's a one size fits all for healing for anybody.
No. And healing is not linear.
It's not linear, and it's not just a like, oh, I've healed, I'm done. No, it's for the rest of your existence. It's same with learning. So you're going to be learning, you're going to be healing and figuring things out.
And it's not like you have to be in therapy consistently for the rest of your life. You can,
but if you have tools, then no matter what comes at you, right, you'll be better prepared to handle, tackle, whatever it is that comes up. And also then you're demonstrating, if you have kids or other youth or whatever, other people around you, you're also demonstrating to them like, hey, you can do it differently. Mm-hmm. Like there's many different ways, and there's not a one good way, and there's not a right way either. Like I hate when people say this. I'm like, no, that's good for you, but for other people, like that might not make sense for them.
And also make sure you're validating your kids' feelings, because, I used to get told, no, I'm not feeling that way. That's not how it is. And I'm like, but I'm telling you, that's how I feel.
Right. You can't have a wrong feeling. And that's another thing. And so facts are facts, feelings are feelings, and they don't need to make sense. Right? Mm-hmm. Your feelings are yours. Facts should be like exactly how something happened. If you're recalling a story, right? Like if you have to make a report on something that happened, right? You have to have the facts. And sometimes it's hard for people to be able to decouple those two things, because our feelings are our own, and we hold them as in whatever way we do, because it's going to be based off of each person. We can all go through the same exact thing, and all of us can digest it and go through it differently.
Gretchen, before we wrap it up, though, let's get to Gretchen saying that I love that you speak up for yourself. Self-advocacy is just a gift for yourself and for your kids to learn.
Oh, man, I hope so. I'm sure we're fucking them up in our own ways.
I'm sure every parent probably feels that way at some point.
Well, I don't think there's any way that you can't. We're humans.
Is there a bunny out there? Is that why you're Velcroing yourself to the screen, young lady? Sorry. Okay, just for giggles.
Oh, she's looking.
There's a bunny out there.
Oh my gosh.
Yep, she can't handle.
She's like, I love this.
She's like, that bunny is mocking me.
I know, the lizards, the cats just sit there, the lizards. And also, let's just say this, animals are super healing to me personally, not to everybody, but animals, they are so resilient, and they don't.
And you're a foster parent to animals, not to humans, I don't think, but to animals.
No, I would like to. I just don't know if we have the time, but I would like to. I wanted to foster kids.
I bet that is super healing too.
Ridiculous. I think so. I think it's nice to be able to be the adult you needed, you wanted, you liked, you looked up to, just to spread that kind of energy in the world is good. I mean,
exactly.
We're delinquents for sure, but we also have some love to give.
Oh, Gretchen's asking where your kitten is.
She is sleeping right now. She was screaming right before we started this, and I was like, ma'am. That's why I told her, I was like, oh my God. She is a hot mess express. She's like 8.8 ounces, 9 ounces if she's just eaten. She's little, but she just screams. Like she wants to be on me. She is no mommy. So I am her mommy. So she is like a little stage 5 clinger, just always on me. And I fed her and played and we did all that. And she was like sleeping. And I was like, okay, I'm going to move you into your cage because you're sleeping. But you know what happens when you move a sleeping baby?
Yep.
We're having the best sleep ever. So she's sleeping.
So to wrap this up, I was just going to ask a fun little ending question. Is there any book you're reading right now, or album you're liking, or TV show that you're binging? Give it to me.
Ooh, I'm not actively doing any books. I did a bunch of books. I have a few more on my list to like listen to, but I've been going through my Scientology books, like my ex-Scientologist. So I did that, and then I had to take a break because like too much and like
Yeah.
needed to take a break. So I've been watching old shows. Like me and my husband are binge watching Supernatural.
Nice. I haven't watched that in a hot minute.
We've never, well, we're on like season 11, 10, 11. And so we've never watched it, but it was like one of these shows. There's a lot of shows. I do love like.
Wasn't it like 15 seasons or something?
15 seasons. Yeah. Well, that's why literally we started watching that and Dexter because they're both super old and they were both recommended. And so Dexter kind of got boring for a little bit. So we took a break from that and went back to Supernatural because Supernatural was kind of boring for a little bit. So we've just been going back and forth.
Have you seen Buffy?
I have not. And I haven't seen Charmed.
Buffy, you got to get on it.
I mean, I've seen a few episodes here and there, but I like never really watched it,
I was definitely a WB / it turned into CW kind of person. I love Dawson's Creek.
I've never watched that either. Okay, so my husband.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna have some like movie nights or TV nights.
I still laugh at him. I'm like, I can't believe you watch the OC. Like,
One Tree Hill. Like, I was into all those.
See, that's so like I always hear people that say like the fandom, like like because I was like looking up like what are good like shows that have nothing to do because that was part of my like decompression of getting away from the Scientology stuff, just like watching something that has nothing to do with it. And so, what was it that came up? Oh gosh, Gilmore Girls.
Oh, Gilmore Girls, yeah.
Yeah,
I like that one too.
It's hard to get into.
It's a little weird at first. Like I feel like the dialogue and the rapid way they talk is weird.
Yeah, just
that's
like
just the way that writer writes. I mean, she also did A Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. If you ever,
I love that. I love that. That's my favorite. That's why I was
so yeah. Amy Sherman Palladino. She did both of those.
Oh, well, maybe I'll want to get back into that one. But yeah, I also watch my little trash TV. Like I'll watch my Housewives here and there.
I'm on the like Too Hot to Handle or Love is Blind. I like those.
I haven't seen those. So my friends do watch those, and they're like, "Do you watch this?" And I'm like, "No." But when I was in California, she was like, "I'm gonna watch this," and I was like, "Okay, Love Island or one of them. When they date, I don't know, one of them."
Yeah.
And so we watched it, but I think it's a good distraction sometimes.
Yeah. I think like watching something that isn't like going to hurt your brain too much to think about is a good thing.
You might like. Have you seen the series Louder Milk? I think it is.
I watched some of it, but not all of it.
So that was one that I was like, honey, we should watch this. And it like was kind of one of those things where like, it's going to be really, because I like weird. I
love weird too.
Yeah. So like, I was like, let's watch this. And this is like when we were bouncing in between Dexter and Supernatural. And they were both at like weird places where we were both just not interested. And so I was like, well, let's watch this. And at first we were like, but we loved it. It was so funny. But it was like an everyday thing because it's literally a guy that teaches recovery. He's in like he's like the AA. I can't remember the title is. Like he's whatever sponsor, the AA sponsor, like one that does the classes, and it's just like him as a person, his everyday life. So it's funny. It's good. So yeah.
I watched Lisa Frankenstein last night, and I thought that was cute. I mean, it's cheesy, but it's like a comedy horror. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's really cheesy. It's on HBO, I think. Okay. Or no, it's on Amazon Prime. Sorry, but it's just about like a teenager that falls in love with this dude who's dead because she goes to his gravestone a lot, and then he like somehow comes to life. And he's like a zombie, and she's like, I don't know. It's funny. It's a whole thing. It's a whole mood. It's bizarre. It's by the writer is Diablo Cody, who did one of my favorites, Jennifer's Body. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one, but I love Megan Fox. Oh no, did Alicia freeze again? Oh, I think Alicia froze again. Oh no.
I think we went out.
I think you froze.
We're back. Oh, we both.
There you are.
I was like, oh no.
that's all I've, watched lately. I watch little series here and there. But that was fun. And I'm really super into this Japanese artist whose name is Kenshi Yaznu. He's like one of Japan's like top musicians, and he just dropped an album that, even though I don't know the language, just like his voice is so beautiful. He has like great inflections. Like even if you don't know the language, you can feel the emotions. Love it. Love him. Tier. I love Japanese music in general.
I was just gonna say my husband
and K-pop.
Yes. I would say that's really big. And there's like Japanese rap that goes real hard. My husband was putting it on the other day, and I was like, what are you saying?
There's a satirical comedy about therapists called Shrunk with Jason Segel and Harrison Ford on Apple TV.
That sounds fun.
Fun. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for having this talk. I know we were only going to plan for an hour, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm just glad that you're on here.
Yeah, this is so fun. And
you're one of those people you're one of those people that I feel like I could talk to all day long.
Yeah, I mean, we do message each other randomly. We're like, over here and over here, just like during the day, randomly.
Yeah, I just like to check in on people, send little memes here and there.
I was just gonna say that's like my love language too. It's just
because sometimes if I can't sit down and have a conversation, if I can't just have a conversation, I still like to let you know that I'm thinking about you.
Right. Or like I watched this really ridiculous thing and it's funny and dumb, and I thought of you. Do you think it's funny too? Like
Did you send it to me?
No. I'm saying if I do, just know.
Oh, yes.
Silly or dumb.
And before we get off of here, Beetlejuice, are you gonna go see it?
Okay, so I yesterday just put it on and made my kids watch it. Because I know they've watched them when they're little, but since it's about to come out, I was like, we have to watch it. And my daughter was like, ooh, style icon. I was like, her name is Lydia, first of all. So you can tell what phase she's at in her teen years.
Nice.
My son wasn't super interested, but I made him sit there and watch it. I was like, sit down and watch the damn show. Like, it's a good movie. He's like, this is not really, it's kind of weird. I was like, shut up. It was good. You just don't know. Like, this is good, but my kids shit talk me all the time because shit talking is a love language in our house. So we've taught our kids, which is good and bad, right? So they'll be like, well, maybe back in your day. I was like, yeah, maybe. But I'm like, the new one's about to come out. So I really do want to go see it, but it comes out on my daughter's birthday. So we'll see.
Nice. Well, I will be in the theater hopefully this weekend. If not, it'll be early next week.
Let me know how you like it. Because you might
for sure. I will probably be doing a live about it because let's be honest, that's like
it's iconic.
Here, I haven't turned this on in a bit. It doesn't have batteries, but hopefully you can see what it says.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah, I have the Beetlejuice sign.
That's perfect. That's his little graveyard sign, guys, for anybody to see it. That's what's over, and it's like it lights up and it's pointing down so that people will say his name 3 times. So
all right, everybody, thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation and learned a little bit. If you have your own tips and tricks that has gotten you through trauma, gotten you through emotional things, anxiety, whatever, leave something in the comments. Let us know what you like to do. I know that some people like to journal. I've never been an avid journaler, but I can see how that works for some people, little things like that. Right. Let's help each other heal together.
Yay. Thanks for having me. This is so much fun.
Bye.
Bye, guys.